We're now on to our last formal session of this year's EntreConf, the leverage effect on networks. Networks matter. The sector ones are vital, like TechSpark, Bristol Creative Industries, thanks Eve, Set Squared and Creative Bath, and many more. Also, the University Alum events, and of course, EntreConf for the wider entrepreneurial ecosystem. But what about other ways of connecting? The aim of this session is to prompt entrepreneurs further to think about how different networks can add value, relationships, partnerships, introductions. So please join me in welcoming our panel, Evie Andrews from Squareworks, co-working and hospitality venues, Latoya McAllister Jones, social entrepreneur, and Paul Kelly from PANDEK, coaching, training and advisory. Come on up, guys. Thank you. Okay, let's get on to some quick intros. So let's begin with you, Evie. Tell us about Squareworks and then how we'll come into the network effect after.
Yeah, of course. So Squareworks is the only co-working space in Bristol that has a private members club. But ultimately, we're a community of over 1,500 creatives, professionals. That includes law firms, creative agencies, artists, all sorts, really. We're based on Berkeley Square, but we've also got hospitality venues all across Clifton.
Thank you. And Latoya, give us a little idea of the organisations you work with.
I'm the Chief Exec of St Paul's Carnival. I'm expecting that most people in here might know what that is. A little thing that happens the first weekend of July, Carnival. But I wear many hats. So I'm also involved in a programme at the moment called Citizens for Culture, which is a citizens' assembly, the first one of its kind in the UK, bringing 52 randomised citizens from across the West of England region to talk about what the cultural offer should look like for citizens. And I work on projects, for example, to do with the Grenfell survivors and bereaved. Most all of my work is about impact with citizens.
Many hats, and thank you for giving up your time to be here, given that the carnival's just around the corner and we know how all-consuming these events can be, so thank you. And Paul, let's have the elevator pitch, as we've been doing today, of PANDEK.
Well, I'm trying a new one, so we'll give it a go and see what happens. So, yeah, PANDEK Group, where we believe that time and people are actually the most expensive thing for any organisation, and we are a designer of time. And what that means is basically we run meetings, workshops and events to make them more meaningful, to make them more worthwhile and purposeful. So when people actually leave a meeting, they don't go down the stairwell, like Steve says, and start, complaining about it. They actually leave it feeling I was heard and actually gave content and I know where I'm going next. So facilitation training and some team coaching.
Brilliant. Well, let's come on to the networking and the leverage effect of networks. And Evie, maybe we start with you. Co-working spaces, there's many a connection to be had. Talk to us about some of those and maybe some examples that you've seen.
No, of course, and I'll sort of start by saying co-working isn't for everyone. There are a lot of businesses that I've sort of interacted with who they're looking for a traditional bricks and mortar office, they want their own door, all of this. But if you're looking for true kind of professional connection, even personal connection sometimes, we've had a lot of couples come out of co-working. So, it is really the best possible way to access a network at your fingertips. And often that network is full of sort of, I suppose you could call them high-value individuals, like people, entrepreneurs, self-starters, or people working in sort of bigger companies that have splintered off nationally. So there's so many different types of people that you can meet in these spaces. And there's such a great range of co-working spaces across Bristol. There's so much for anyone, really, that they could go for, any type of professional business. But I will say Squareworks has a really unique, diverse range of businesses. We've got law firms in-house, but we've also got quantum physicists, like we built them a lab because they deal with quantum photonic chips. We also have creative agencies and all sorts, really. So, yeah.
How have those disparate businesses been able to collaborate and work together? Have you seen them lending their networks and contacts to support?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for example, I'll start with the sort of physics one, duality quantum photonics. They're one of the jewels in our crown. Like, they're really, really fabulous. And but ultimately, they don't yet have a website. So they kind of, they have marketing professionals all around Squareworks that they can speak to about developing that, because everyone's got their own specialism. And often, if you're really good at one thing, you can either be a jack of all trades or you can be a master of one. So I think ultimately you can meet a lot of masters in that space.
And Latoya, have you found any unexpected opportunities arise through the networks and various different hats that you wear and the people that you've come across?
I think definitely. My first experience, I moved to Bristol almost 10 years ago. And when I moved here, I started kind of observing myself getting into a completely new city and how I navigated that. And what I automatically do is create networks. That's something that I automatically do. I hate networking events, but I'm really good at networking because that's how I understand the ecosystem around me. So I see most things as an ecosystem. And when I worked in London, I'm from London, worked in the homelessness sector for over 20 years. And one of the most important experiences I had during that time was working in what was called the Rust Sleepers Unit when New Labour came into power. And what they did was create a Rust Sleepers Unit, and our teams became multidisciplinary. So there'd be a homelessness professional in there, there'd be a police officer in there, a mental health, a community mental health nurse, and people from all around the ecosystem that could coalesce around any particular client to get the best result. And that prevented people from falling through the cracks as you kind of, when you move across different institutions, whether you go from homelessness to the NHS, people always fall through the cracks because the communication isn't there. And I absolutely loved working in multidisciplinary teams. It's like you were saying, some of us will be jack of all trades, some of us will be masters. And when you're in a system that has a collection of people with that bring in different skills and different perspectives, that is your best chance, I think, of success. So I think I've had many opportunities from the networks that I have been part of over the years. Networks that I created in London 13 years ago, I still tap into now for inspiration, for expertise. For me, my network is really a powerful tool.
That is so vital, and when you have that cross-section, then that's when you can actually spot the opportunities often, isn't it? So the point of this, and coming back to your point about not loving the traditional networking, loads of people don't, and the point of this is actually not necessarily having to do that, but actually tapping into the people that you know to leverage that connection and get some more through them. So Paul, how can people go about this? Have you got any examples or any thoughts?
I think I don't like the word networking, but I do agree with it because, it's different. But I prefer focusing around the idea of community, the idea of actually understanding people, the idea of actually getting to know a little bit more about people. So if you take like this event, I've had conversations with a couple of lead sponsors, but they're conversations about completely different things. But we're having that actual relationship building rather than here's my business card, here's what I do, goodbye, I'm going to the next person. It's also, we've heard kind of different things over the last day or two where things just happen. People sit beside somebody and, oh, right, so there's a multi-million-pound thing going to happen in 6 months, but we don't know it at the time. And I think it's also that opportunity when we be part of something, we begin to understand other people. And it goes back to advice I was given. So give you a bit of context. PANDEK is only 5.5 years old. So really good time to set up an in-person training facilitation business was the 17th of February, 2020.
Plug.
And call it PANDEK. Brilliant idea. Brilliant. But how did I survive? Because of a community I joined. So at the time, NatWest Accelerator Program, the International Association of Facilitators. So the community aspect of people knowing me actually got us through something which was completely not what we were expecting. And things came from that. I ended up having, I'm not going to say it was 18, it might have been 16 glasses of champagne waiting for the king to arrive at an event because somebody in my network, we built a relationship and they said, come along to it. Now, the only reason I had that many was because I keep topping it up because apparently your glass needs to be full when he arrives. But it is that thing where we don't know. Another event I went to, Had a coffee afterwards. The follow-up is so important. Keep the conversation going. I'll kid you not, I don't remember having a virtual coffee with this person 2 years ago, but he sent me a message. I ended up in a conversation with somebody else. I ended up on a plane a week later to Denver. You just don't know what's going to come from any conversation you have. So I think it's just be open and actually be honest with yourself. If you think you don't really want to talk to that person, find somebody you do. Go with your energy. Go with your gut. Don't go with their LinkedIn title and job title. Go with your gut, and then things, I believe, will happen.
Yeah, that's the importance of those kind of personal relationships, and that's what makes work so enjoyable. Often, you know, that actual real human connection. Latoya, coming back to you, and you're organising your events world, but also, in your community work as well. It does take a village, doesn't it? And you're often drawing on, there's something that's happening at the last minute, an emergency, and you're going, who can help me with this? Who can help me with that? How do you kind of galvanise that and know the right people to go to and pull it together in the moment?
Panic.
Yeah. In those moments of panic, that's when you need
in
this
those
skill,
moments
isn't
of
it?
panic, it's, I think organising an event like St Paul's Carnival is really special and interesting because it, from the outside, I'm a massive extrovert, so organising a massive party is I'm all over it. But when you go underneath the surface of St Paul's Carnival, it is all about the networks of community, the network of the local city council, of the people who have lived in Bristol far longer than I have, who I can call on and say, you know about sound systems. We've got some generator problem going on. Who can help? So it is for me about understanding the different kind of pots of people that you have in your network, and being able to identify people that within those networks that know far more about this stuff than you do. And we talked to, there's a lot of mention of the word vulnerability in the last session. That ability to be vulnerable and go, this is not my area, and I don't know about this, I can't answer this question, but you know what? I know a man who can, or a woman who can in most cases. And it's about tapping into and having like almost a Rolodex in your head of how all of those connections work together. I really believe that when you touch something in this system, over there, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. So it's about for me, it's about understanding where all of those different points connect and how you can leverage them.
One of the things that I was given, again, a bit of advice, is that it's not always what you know, it's not always who you know, it's actually quite often who knows you, because they're in a room that you're not in, and they might talk about you. In a nice way, hopefully.
Yeah, I think, well, exactly. I think one of the reasons that people really hate networking, it's got such a poor reputation as an activity, as a hobby, is because, as a hobby, is because I think we've all kind of, shook someone's hand and you've introduced yourself, you said your name, what you do, and you watch their eyes just go dead because they're like, I can't sell to you. This is a useless conversation to me now, which is not how that should work, really. That's not how business development works. As you said, it's who knows you. If you've met someone at an event, made a positive impression on them, hopefully, they will bring you up in a room somewhere far away. Might not be Bristol, could be Denver. And, that's the way that is beneficial. I think there is a fundamental difference, though, between a network and a community, because network implies that you can kind of, I suppose, utilise the people in that group, whereas community implies more like peaceful coexistence, which I think there is some kind of halfway point and some kind of new vocabulary that we need for the halfway point between a community and a network, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. And coming back to Latoya's point of asking for help, and you often find that people are more than happy to help, and they really want to, and they kind of remember that as well, and that really helps enhance your relationship. The community point, I was speaking to the guys from PwC at the dinner last night, obviously a massive organisation, and they said they kind of can use that, the people in their organisation all over the world, to tap into, to answer questions that they're not sure about, and that's a very easy ask, even if you've never spoken to that person before, because they're in the same business. So it's kind of treating people like that, isn't it, as resources? Go on, Paul.
it goes back to something that was mentioned yesterday. It's about that kind of getting knocked down.
Yeah.
You know, and you get up again and knocked down, and that, and the advice is actually, well, talk to the person who's been on the bottom, on the floor, maybe in tears, and actually have that conversation and learn from them. And it goes back to that kind of co-working space. It was like in accelerator hubs, you know, I don't, got to be honest with you, I don't go in there to work. Right, I am one of those people. Probably like yourself. I like a little chat every now and then, but I'm respectful.
It's
but
just
that's
important.
Yeah, that's where I learn stuff, and that's where I can share stuff, and that's where I can not make some mistakes in the future.
Evie, how do you opposite to Latoya, you love networking, don't you? And you've got a great network as well. But how do you personally leverage and go about leveraging those?
It's a good question. I think if I step into a room, most of the time I turn up to networking events on my own. So I just kind of walk in. You might think I'm really tragic, actually. But I kind of walk in and I just kind of, I sort of scan the room and I sort of seek out the most boring person I can see. And then I walk up to them and I try and make them laugh. Like in the first, you. In the first, 2 minutes. No, so I think it's, I think too many people, they think about networking, they think, oh, I need to go with someone, I need to speak to people I know so they can introduce me to people they know. But it's far more impressive and far more self-empowering it's like going to the cinema on your own. You know, you've got to, and maybe that's some people's idea of hell, but it is, you go and you will make far more connections that way. And also, I guess, networking sideways in a way, instead of your first question being, hey, what's your name? What do you do? You can say, hey, what's your name? What have you been watching on Netflix recently? You know, and they might be a bit shocked, but they will tell you. And the answer might just surprise you. And it might start a conversation that's way more interesting than I run an accountancy firm and I'm this old and here's where my family's from, you know?
Yeah, that helps with the relationship point, doesn't it?
I think there's definitely something about being prepared to go and ask the question. And our most recent chair was Levi Roots, the millionaire chef.
Previous keynote at EntreConf, by the way.
Yes. And he was a coup through my network and from somebody that I know in Bristol, who's doing some work for us and compiling a list of who would be suitable as chair, and she pulled his name out, and I was like, Levi Roots is not going to become the chair of St Paul's Carnival. He's way too busy for that. But I'm a firm believer of if you don't ask, you don't get. So I sent him our wonderful report from the last carnival, all glossy, and we tried it and jumped on a call with him. And I knew before the call was over that he'd already made the decision to say yes. And that was by, that opportunity came from plumbing my networks to get a list together of potential chairs. And never in a million years would I thought Levi Roots, his name would have been on that list. But also the ability to ask the question. If you don't ask, you don't get. And like you were saying, ask about Netflix, you don't know what's the answer's going to be.
So true. And those connections can come from anywhere in your past, your school friend or, at any point. So it's digging into those different areas, isn't it? Do we have any questions or comments from the audience about this topic for our panellists? Ashla.
I love the Netflix question. Has anybody else got any tricks or tips? Because people think I'm a very sociable person. I go to these events to get to know people. I go to a lot of tech events where people think I'm hosting because I shouldn't be a tech head. People think I like going in, but sometimes I feel really nervous and go by myself as well. So any other icebreakers that you all have that could be helpful to us?
I mean, it's interesting. I think it's all about mindset. And you can prepare questions, you can have a think about what you want to ask people about, but ultimately I go in there as the most bombastic version of myself. have like a bit of a moment where I'm like, okay, I'm in networking mode now, and I stand taller and I put my shoulders back and I walk in. And that version of myself asks people loads of really random questions. And I've dined out on that personality quite a lot, actually. So, but I would say in terms of like different things, like people love being asked about themselves because ultimately for most people it's their favorite topic. So certainly is mine, you know. So I think it's, you know, you want to ask them something unexpected, but also safe. You know, there is such a fine line between asking someone about the sort of media they enjoy or the sort of thing they might be into and being like, how old are your children? You know, and like that can seem really rogue. So I think, yeah, there is a line. And I've definitely probably also weirded people out before, but ultimately my net result is good. So I'd say in terms of that, it's A, mindset, and B, in terms of questions, it's always got to be about something that's to do with them, but not necessarily about them.
For me, I think it's give them something to come to talk to you about. And that comes back from the work that I do with going into rooms of people that don't know me. I did a piece of work with 17 lead clinicians. It was a very sensitive piece of work. They weren't very good friends with each other. They'd work on 24-hour shift kind of patterns. They don't really know each other. And I was walking into the room to have this conversation with them. And I wore a salmon pink, thick black or brown check suit. And this guy walks up to me and he goes, "You're brave." And I just simply turned around and said, "Well, I have to be in a room with you lot." And that gave him something to talk about. So now my thing at the moment is bring back brooches for blokes. So the amount of conversations I've had just from people saying, "Oh, I like your brooch." Actually, I'll tell you, men more so than females. People that I assume are men or females, but it give them something to talk about. And when I go to an event, then I actually go talk to people that I already know. And I'll pick one more person because I want to build a relationship with them. I don't need another load of people to try and figure out and connect and have a coffee and all that type of stuff. One is enough. But actually, I'd love to go talk to the people that I know more so.
I'm really similar to you, actually. Before I go to any kind of networking event, my sort of one objective is to meet one person that I have a meaningful conversation with, and not to apply pressure to, you know, come away with loads of business cards if people are still using those. I just, the one significant conversation is enough for me, and I will. And if you're speaking to people that you know, they will introduce you to other people that come up. Just the one person. And I think on the statement jewellery question, I think it really works. I have been into quite sweary jewellery in the last few years, given all of the political upsets that we've had, and I usually have something quite significant around my neck, and have forgotten that I wear it. So I go off in all types of places. I was being interviewed by the BBC the other day, and they're like, "Your necklace, you have to take that off." But people come up to me all the time to talk about my statement jewellery. And this is probably one of the best networking devices that I've ever had.
See, that's a really interesting perspective, because on the other hand, I'm rubbish at wearing jewellery. I only ever wear my watch. But I will ask, Paul, did you swap out your brooch from this morning? It was a peacock, and now it's a different bird.
No, you got a double brooch.
Oh, it's double brooch.
You got a double brooch.
I should have known, honestly.
All charity shops, it's brilliant.
Yeah, honestly. No, that's amazing. I mean, going back to the kind of like, you know, somewhat random, unexpected conversations point, me and Latoya had the privilege, I had the privilege of sitting next to you at the
it was mine.
Bristol Life Network lunch. And I found out just how much you're into Strictly Come Dancing.
Oh my God.
You know,
Nobody try and contact me from September to December.
So now I know that you don't email or message Latoya between.
Not unless it's about Strictly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'll be picking up WhatsApp messages for that.
Yeah. Whereas if we'd never sat next to each other, I'd never know that.
Absolutely, and because we sat next to each other, I found out a bit about your background teaching, and I have someone on my team that's looking for board members with your kind of experience. She said that she's going to be in contact with you today, and I connected them because your experience completely suited one of my team members who's got a separate CIC that she's developing, and I thought you'd make a fantastic board member. so connected the two people together.
So good.
And we've never met before, and we met in reception, and it was like, oh yeah, but we know each other through somebody else.
Yes.
So I run a CIC called We Irish. One of our directors is in constant contact with you.
Yeah.
You shared ideas about events and spaces. So it is that kind of just be
Bristol
open.
is a village. I think that something that is quite particular to us is the geography of Bristol. We are definitely a city. We feel like a city with all of the grungy underground stuff that we have. But I think it's less than 6 degrees of separation here, which can sometimes be a curse or a blessing, depending on how much partying you've done in your past.
It would be a really good idea if somebody put that on a magazine.
The degrees of separation.
Yes.
No, it's a village.
Ah,
It's a
yeah.
village.
Well,
I know, it is the cover line of one of our latest issues. Yes, well remembered. This is Leverage Effect Live, everybody. Evie, did you have another point?
Yeah, I totally forgot
yeah.
it. Sorry.
Flyer.
Yeah.
Any more audience questions? Can we get the mic to anyone else? Here.
I feel I have to
Dan.
comment on this panel.
Yes.
So I'm Dan from Bristol Creative Industries. We love the Square Club. We run lots of events there. Come to them. It's a little bit negative, but I agree with all this. It's amazing, and I'm a bit similar on. Really like networking, but don't like it at times. But what do you think? There is some conversation and events that we've done around Bristol actually can be quite disconnected in many ways. So probably everyone in this room is probably very well connected, but we're not as connected as we could be in terms of things like the creatives connected to the sort of more the tech is, and the tech is created to the cultural people. A little bit of a plug, but we're involved in a festival that's happening in October called BTF Plus, which is bringing together creatives, technology and culture for that very reason. So what are your thoughts, because you're all involved in all of that, what are your thoughts on what Bristol could do better to bring even more connections and the kind of various sectors together?
This is a conversation that we have a lot in sort of our creative circles. One of the things that I've been thinking about is what's Bristol City Council's potential role in this, because it feels, certainly for the sector that I'm in at the moment, we are firefighting. We are trying to save our venues, our events, etc., and getting your head above the parapet to be able to see those opportunities is really, really difficult right now. And I think there is a space for some kind of brokerage service that understands the ecology in the city and where the assets are and who's looking for assets and how those things can be connected. And I think that it'd be great to see some kind of brokerage service in the City Council that, or WECA, for example, West of England Combined Authority, to be able to support that kind of work, holding the responsibility of bringing all of that together and being able to see where the gaps are and bringing people together accordingly. That's one of the things that I think would be great.
I think from my experience, it happens in so many different places. It's about getting it all to people to understand. There are different groups where they're bringing together within universities, and so it's that interdisciplinary kind of creative growth as part of Growth Hub. It's there, but it's like spaghetti. You don't know which bit's actually the start and which bit's the end. So it could happen. I think it just needs somebody to coordinate it.
Yeah, I think there's two kind of sort of responses, I think, with that. In terms of, marrying up communities together of sort of niche industries and stuff like that, I will say co-working is a really good concept for that, just because I've found people talking in kitchens that I'm like, I did not know you knew each other. And they'll be in totally different industries. But beyond that, I think also just the events industry, as you say, we are fighting fires in terms of trying to maintain these sort of grassroots venues and all of these places where culturally these mixes do happen. So I think just making sure that we protect what makes Bristol special. And I think events like the one you mentioned are so key to that, because they do bring together people not only of different industries, but backgrounds and creeds and religions and whatever you want to say.
But if we take this as an event, it kind of brings the two cities together, which are quite close to each other. I think there is a bit of a divide between Bath and Bristol, but I think the mixture in this room is very different than other events. I know Tech Spark are doing the same, but they run events quite separate sometimes in the city. So
Yeah. So we are coming to the end of our time for this session now. Maybe a final quick tip or thought from you each on leveraging your network. Paul, after you.
I'm going to switch a little bit and just say that this is the hardcore group. And thank you very much for staying all the way to the end.
Thank you,
You are
hardcores,
the people that can do it, so it is appreciated.
I think, just reflecting off what you've just said, find yourself in rooms that you wouldn't normally be in. Sort of the Bristol life. One of what I realised as a leader of an urban festival is that many of the people that were part of Greg's network weren't part of mine, and I kind of set out to become part of this network. So I think try and be in rooms where you don't know people.
Put yourself out there.
No, absolutely, both really good points. I would also say, I think we were talking about how Bristol is a village. I think that it's doubly important as well just to be exceptionally kind and patient with everyone that you meet, not only in a networking concept, but just anywhere really, because you never know when you're going to come to one of these things or come to a different event. You're going to be facing across someone that, you know, you've potentially crossed. So just be nice to everyone.
Very nice point to end on. Thank you so much to all of our panellists, Evie, Latoya and Paul. Thank you.